Welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 34. The title of this video is, Was Dinah a Victim of Rape? We look in Jasher chapter 33 for more information into this story. It says in the book of Jasher 33 verse 11 that Dinah was taken by force. In verse 21 it describes how she was ravaged and they committed fornication with her, specifically Shechem. And then in verse 36 of the same chapter, the men of the city had conspired, or they plotted to kill all of Israel in return. I should say they plotted to kill Israel, and that's why we have Simeon and his brother, I believe it's Levi, who plotted to, in return, well, not that they plotted, but in return, after finding out this information from their sister, it says that Dinah overheard this conversation of the men to conspire to, or plot to kill her brothers and all of Israel, all of its people, all their descendants, everyone of their household. She then relayed the message via one of her handmaidens, who reported to them in time that they could prepare for this, specifically to Simeon and Levi, and that's why they killed the whole city. It wasn't a random act of violence, like they were just bloodthirsty, although maybe Jacob was not privy to this information. That's why he did give them that statement at the end of his life regarding their future. Some would say it's a curse, but anyway, a prophecy. So we're going to look at there's a few more verses here. It says in verse 52 of Jasher 33, it says, this was from Jehovah regarding Israel attacking Shechem and Shechem pretty much plotting to kill Israel. It was all part of Jehovah's plan to get rid of the Canaanites and the Amorites, because this event that we're going to read of in Genesis 34, this event was the spark, I should say, that led to a series of very bloody wars between the kingdoms of the Canaanites and the Amorites on one side of the battle. So you have both Canaanites and Amorites teaming up versus Israel, versus Jacob's sons. And the book of Jasher is very, very detailed, and what one would, if you just read it and take it as it is, it reads much like a lot of violent movies of today, but not simply just in the bloodshed, but in the capabilities of his sons. They have strength that seems very superhuman, but not unlike Samson, funnily enough, or ironically. So moving on to Genesis 34, I just wanted to give you that backstory just to answer the question. Yeah, Dinah was raped. She was taken by force against her will. She was ravaged. Ravaged is another way to say raped. So there are 31 verses in this chapter, and we're going to look into what the Septuagint says about this. It says here that Shechem, the son of Hamor, he was the ruler of the land. Him and his father, they were rulers of the land. Whereas the Masoretic says he was the prince of the country. I find ruler of the land seems more clear as to his authority. He's not just, you can be a prince, but not really ruling over the land. You can just be a figurehead. He's not a figurehead. He is a ruler. Verse 5 says, defiled matches up. Okay, so he had defiled Dinah. So this matches up in both texts. And in verse 2, we see that he humbled her in the Septuagint, whereas defiled actually lines up more because it does give you more detail. It says he defiled her. He humbled her, but he defiled her. And the book of Jasher says it plainly, he raped her. To defile someone, to rape someone, force a woman against their will, is humbling or is defiling them versus a consensual act. I wouldn't, my opinion would be maybe it's not defiling them, but that's just my opinion anyway. Verse 7 says, deeply pained. It says, the men were deeply pained. This is after the brothers or the sons of Jacob found out about Dinah being raped, being defiled. They were deeply pained. It pained them to hear this. Versus they were grieved. Not just grieved, they were very wroth. They were very angry. Because it does say grieved in both translations. But they were very angry. But however, no, it pained them. And I'm sure they were angry too, but it was very much heavy on their minds. It weighed much on them. Verse 8 says, my son, Hamor, saying, my son has chosen in his heart your daughter, versus my son, Shechem, longs for your daughter. You can see that it's a little stronger in the Septuagint, that he is chosen in his heart. Or just it's expressed differently anyhow. Verse 14, it says here that Simeon and Levi, the brothers of Dinah, said, we shall not be able to do this thing. So this is Simeon and Levi being the mouthpiece for Jacob and his sons. They are the ones who are leading this conversation, speaking on behalf of the household of Israel when it comes to dealing with Shechem and Hamor. What does the Masoretic say? It doesn't say this. It just says they said. So we're assuming it's just all the sons of Jacob speaking at the same time, or any one of them, not two specific people. And that's what we're seeing here. It is two specific people, Simeon and Levi. Verse 15 says, only on these terms will we conform to you and dwell among you, versus, but in this we will consent to you. So we're seeing that they have specific terms that they need to have met, and then they will conform to you. This is Simeon and Levi. We will conform to you. We will live among you. We're going to be, we're going to be like one people if you agree on these specific terms. So it's worded differently in the Masoretic. Says, in this will we consent to you. It says in verse 16, your daughters for wives to us. We will take your daughters for wives to us. Masoretic says, we will take your daughters. It doesn't say we'll marry them, we'll just take them. I find it more respectable in Septuagint to take them, to marry them. And it also says, we will be as one race. Notice that in verse 16. We will be as one race. Here it says, we will be as one people in the Masoretic. I know it says earlier in Genesis that God made one race, but this might just be a saying, an expression that we are as one race. Maybe they meant one people. Maybe one people is a better translation, but it says here one race. But I think the thought is they will be like one people, one race. I mean, technically they're one race, but one united race. So you can be still the same race, but united. Because I know the concept of oneness is to be unified, to be united. It's not simply to be the same. You could have many dogs and they can be the same, but they're not really united. So we will be as united, unified race. Verse 19 says, he was much attached to Jacob's daughter. This is Shechem. The Masoretic says, because he had delight. He had delight on Jacob's daughter, not that he was attached to her, but delight. So we take the Septuagint over the Masoretic, and then verse 23 it says, and shall not their cattle and their herds and their possessions be ours? Only in this let us conform to them, and they will dwell with us. This is the Septuagint saying, expressing Shechem's way to reason to his people, this is what we're going to get in return. verses in the Masoretic, he's saying, shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell with us. So the reason I highlight this verse is because I've heard that some reason that Shechem and his people had selfish motives. That it wasn't really about Dinah. It was about let us take their possessions. However, just from reading it, it sounds like Shechem was trying to speak to the people to get them on his side, but not really. It's not like his priority was what they wanted. He actually really wanted Dinah. You can see it in the verse in this chapter that he was attached to her. He really wanted to have her as a wife, and that's the only way he could get through to his people, to get their support, to garner their support. He had to think like they did, so he's using this as bait um, to get them on board. But I don't think it was that we're going to take their possessions. It's that we're going to share possessions. We're going to have a lot more, and they will have ours too. But anyway, but that's also a possibility. Maybe that is very much so that they're going to take their stuff and just steal it away from them. I don't know. So verse 25, it says, they came upon the city. This is Simeon, Levi, securely. So it sounds like they went there stealthily. They didn't go there openly and say, hey, we're here to kill you. No, they came there securely. So it sounds like they did this at nighttime, possibly, but they did it in a way that they didn't draw attention to themselves. Masoretic says they came on the city boldly, so either bravely or openly. Either one, I'm not sure however you interpret it, but once again, the Septuagint is what we're going by in this series, and it's securely. They came there securely. They took every precaution. They knew what they were doing. They were prepared to do this, to kill everyone there. Verse 27 says, they came upon the wounded, Simeon and Levi, and ravaged the city wherein they had defiled Dinah, their sister. So that's a different way of ravage. It's a different connotation. Obviously, when it came to Dinah, ravage meant raped. But in this case, Simeon and Levi ravaged the city, and meaning they killed everybody and plundered it, I guess is another way to put it. They pillaged it. Masoretic reflects this. It says, they came upon the slain, not the wounded. So they finished the job pretty much in the Septuagint, and they spoiled the city. So they plundered it. So that's all for 27. Verse 30 is the last verse we're going to look at. And this is a statement from Jacob. He's concerned. He said to Simeon and Levi, you have made me hateful, so that I should be evil to all the inhabitants of the land. So he's saying, I'm going to be hated because now I am seen as evil, as a calamity, as not good among the inhabitants. Versus the Masoretic saying, you have troubled me. So it's like he's perplexed, he's scared, he's disturbed, to make me to stink, like my reputation stinks now among the inhabitants of the land. But either way, they're not pleasing to the inhabitants now. It seems that Jacob doesn't understand what happened, the backstory. And the book of Jasher gives us more information about how they went to the house. They wanted to take Dinah, but they saw, the servants of Jacob saw that Shechem was taking advantage of Dinah, was kissing her and everything, and they would not let them in to take her. Maybe he wasn't aware that she was raped. Maybe he didn't know that. Maybe Jacob was not aware that they plotted to kill not only him, but all his sons and all their kids, everyone that was associated with Jacob. Maybe he wasn't privy to that. I'm not sure, but he responds, I should say Simeon Levi said to their father, no, no, but shall they treat our sister as a harlot? So they're saying, no, it won't be that way. So I'm going to put here that no is omitted from the Masoretic. It doesn't say no. It just says, should he deal with their sister as with a harlot? No, he shouldn't treat our sister like a prostitute, essentially. That he can just take her by force and do what he wants with her, like a piece of meat. So that's all I have to say about this chapter. Genesis 34. Dinah was a victim of rape. That's the answer. She was forced, not only forced in terms of kidnapping, such as pretty much human trafficking when you think about it. Although she wasn't trafficked, she was kidnapped against her will. She was raped, again, non-consensual sexual relations, and then she heard of the plot of Shechem's people. She overheard that they wanted to kill all of Israel, all of her brothers, all of their servants, everyone of that household, and she wisely reported it. It's no accident Jehovah put her in that place to not only save them, preserve Israel, but to also, in the process, do away or push away some of the kingdoms that were already there, such as the kingdoms of the Canaanites and the Amorites. And you can see in the book of Jasher, it's just a big chunk of scriptures there in Jasher that are devoted to describing the details of these battles that Simeon and Levi and other of their brothers had joined to essentially take on these cities almost by themselves, single-handedly kill hundreds and thousands of people. So remember, it's only two people, Simeon and Levi, and they killed the whole city all by themselves. I think it's important to note Genesis 34, the Septuagint doesn't contradict this statement. It doesn't say that they brought an army with them or they brought other men with them. It was only them two, that had murdered and ravaged the city. So that's all I have to say for today on this chapter. Thank you for your time. May Jehovah bless you and make your way prosperous. Until next episode, we will look at Genesis chapter 35. This is Jack Knight for Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Shalom.